Well,
I don't see him.
we'll start the meeting a little bit early so we can get through the minutes and stuff
Oh, yeah, all right.
before he gets here. Us two have already call the meeting to order at 5 minutes of 5. So we've already signed the warrants and the abatements, and Art's still doing that.
Yep.
Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes?
We did. Going through it right now.
Okay.
I don't have anything. You do it?
I don't have anything.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's, I gotta sign this time right here.
I have
Both, I got both the minutes here I signed for you. I got both of them for you.
Okay.
All right, so, while you're doing that, can I continue on that?
Sure.
Okay, new water meters, what's,
All right, so I'm having issues getting, so remember I discussed the Emmys. Emmys they've got a 90-day memory storage, which isn't any good because by the time the people get the bill and then they decide to complain, half that 90 days is gone and now we're looking at things. But I can't, I've had them on order now for 6 months and I'm still waiting. We don't have any meters left. I can get the brass part of it, but I can't get the top. I can get, mechanical storage. So I asked the Badger rep, who is Stiles, they were bought out. And
Badger was bought out?
no, Stiles was bought out by a couple. They bought the whole thing. I don't know how big they are. I know they have a few stores.
Who bought Stiles?
I Coates, Ian, and I forget her name. But it was it's American.
Were they in business around here, local before that, or?
I don't know where they came from.
Really? Well,
You're completely out of meters now?
Yeah, and I can't get it. Like I said, and they've offered me up like a partial delivery. So the other way to get memory is to go with the cellular ones, which the cost is the same, except that you have to pay a $95 monthly charge for the cellular part of it. But there's no other fees because we already pay Badger for the system that we're using. So it would just seamlessly, if you put them in the system, they're automatically there and working. And they're reading in just the same.
So you don't have to replace everything else?
No, you don't have to replace anything. So I asked them, well, what if we buy into this, where's Badger going? And, he can't say, but he believes that Badger's heading the cellular route anyways. That's where everybody's heading because
so how does the cellular work? Is the meter a cellular phone?
Yeah, so it calls in, I think, four times a day. I only briefly read it, but it calls in, but when it calls in, it downloads. So it's reading all the time and it's downloading all of that data, but it only calls in, like 4 times a day to download that data.
And how much are they storing for how long?
So it's not storing, it's sending it up to Badger to store. So when it calls in, it dumps the data to Badger it's not called Badger anymore, it has another name. They're still Badger, but the part that we use or we see as the cloud part is a different name. But we already pay for that anyways, and we pay the service charges for that, for the drive around part of it. So the only extra cost is that 95 cents per meter. And those meters,
So there's no more driving around?
you wouldn't drive around once you started replacing them with the cellulars, no.
Well, you still gotta drive around for the others.
The others should still be driving around because most of the town is still there.
Right.
It's just the newer parts. but I can get those now, where I can't get the other ones at all. I'm still waiting.
Huh,
Why are they saying they're just not available?
Yeah, they're just, whatever they did, or the Styles did, they bought a lot of them in advance so that they had them in stock, where the other ones are a dying thing. Most of the bigger cities and stuff are going to the dial-ins versus drive around. Because in the city, you'd be driving around forever. They're big.
so it's a local, distributor that hasn't got them, it's not Badger.
Well, Badger can't produce them either because they can't get the chips. So they're
okay.
waiting. If they had them, then we'd get them.
I got you. So it's a chip problem, like
Yeah.
everybody else is having problems with.
Yep.
So that's pain, huh?
So the phone issue that we keep having here, is that gonna interfere with that at all?
So they changed the modem in the back room, so we haven't had that issue. They believe that Comcast might have been doing updates and that was wiping it. When they updated, they were wiping out our firewall.
Okay.
Because it needed a static IP address, and when they were doing that, they were wiping out the static IP for here. We could get on the internet, but you couldn't the town wouldn't recognize us because we weren't static, we had a new address.
Okay, so we haven't had any issues with that?
No, we haven't since they did that, but they've run fiber. There's something, I remember Ed coming and talking about fiber, but he was saying, it's more money. So our bandwidth, your download might be 100 megabytes a second, or gigabytes, but your upload is much, much slower. It's not the same. It's a lot less. So with fiber, it's 1-to-1. If it's 100 gigabytes download, it's 100 gigabytes back up. So he had talked about it, and he wasn't sure which way he was going, but the very next day they ran the fiber cable into the building. So it's sitting in the back connected up, but they haven't gone any further with it yet. So I think they're gonna go with fiber, but I'm not sure. So eventually our system will change over.
Okay.
So the fiber comes from where?
I don't know, they tied it in up on the street, it's on the poles.
Does it come from Comcast?
I don't know if it's Comcast or somebody else. That's why I couldn't ask anybody, because I didn't know which way he was going. And suddenly they show up, so now I've got Comcast and I've got the fiber, which I believe is from somebody else.
So that fiber isn't our own
No, it's
fiber
not.
optics that
No,
the town put in.
yeah, no, it's not. It's a separate company.
Oh, huh. All right. So do we have to pay for that too? Monthly fee?
Well, we'll either be switched from one to the other. I think I remember him saying the fiber was a little more or something, but nothing's cheaper anymore.
Of course not.
Back to the cost on the meters, it's 90, did you say it was 95 cents a month a meter?
Per meter, yes. You can get them preloaded, but when I divided it through, you don't get any bargain for preloading it with the, 10 years of use.
Wait a minute, so it's gonna cost, we got 2,700 meters out there, it's gonna be $2,700 a month?
Yeah, if you had them all switched over. So at some point, yes, it would be.
And what do we pay for the drive around?
You don't pay anything.
Well, I don't think that's such a good idea. 2,700 a month times 12?
It'll be wherever they force us to go. So right now they're still offering, it was the CE, which had, it had 2 years worth of data, but technically it had from the birth of the meter, so it could hold a lot of years. And then they switched over to this ME, which just holds 90 days. So they're cheapening up as they move along, I think, in an effort to force you over.
Who else has got systems out there?
So most of them are all the cellular. I'd have to start looking to see who else has meter systems.
Well, 95 cents a month per meter. It's gonna be pretty expensive for us. That's another whole,
Well, it's a budget line, yeah.
yeah. Well, that's something we need to really consider, I think. I don't know about you guys. That's a lot of money. When we could drive around and get our meter readings for free. We usually just get it over the telephone lines and that was cheap.
Yeah, and then everybody did away with their phones.
Yeah, well, not gonna pay 95 cents for a cellular phone call. That's 95 cents for somebody to give you a cellular phone call.
Right.
That's robbery.
And when I spoke, so the time that I was at the park, whoever that meter system was connected with Verizon, so they didn't charge you for the call. I'm sure it was built in somewhere else. Somehow it was built in.
Well, see who else makes meters out there besides Badger? Who's still making them? Neptune?
Yeah, there's Neptune, there are a few others. You just have to be careful. You don't want the all electric. You want the mechanical register as well as the electronic, because when the
Right.
all electronics go, suddenly you have nothing.
Well, you need to look at what
Right.
other manufacturers are doing out there, and, you know, I always liked Badger, personally. I thought they made a good meter, but I don't think that we should sit here and get robbed by them. That's highway robbery to me. 95 cents a phone call. So, my feeling is, I don't know about the other two guys, but I think we ought to look at what else is out there.
Before we commit to that kind of money. Because if you started going part way, you're not gonna wanna switch.
So we're not scheduled to start, so the way the meter program went, I believe it was begun, I looked back through the files, it began in like 2012, I think that's when we started switching over to the Orion-based meter system. And only a few were rolled out because of the cost. It seemed like it was only funded so far. So when we got to 2016 and I realized that most of our meters weren't calling in anymore, that's when we went great guns at it and started. So 2027 is the beginning part. If you take 15 years onto the 2012, that's when you want to start replacing at the 15-year mark. Instead, they're rated in life for up to 20 years, but you don't want to wait for them to die anymore, because you don't have any data after that, except the mechanical register, and people get mad when they get catch-up bills. So both of the meters won't come until 15 years after.
Well, you're not even talking about replacements, so you're talking about even for new meters.
Right,
For all this stuff
that's when
that's
you're gonna
going
start
in
doing
now.
the town again.
Yeah.
And you're
Well,
gonna
we shouldn't wait
right, you're not
and
gonna.
then try to replace the whole town all at once because it's too expensive.
Right, you wanna spread it
We
out.
need to start at some point doing, say, 10 or 20% of the town so we get it done
Yeah.
in 5 or 10 years.
You're gonna wanna
Spread it out.
begin in 2017, but your bulk is gonna come like towards the 2030 timeframe.
Well, and you don't wanna be starting to do that with something that they're replacing the technology on either. And then get halfway through and have to switch
Right.
anyway.
Well, what happens if all of a sudden they decide, well, it was $1 a phone call or 95 cents, now we're gonna make it $1.25.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's massive.
what are we gonna do? We got all these meters in there with cellular capability.
Right.
With
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in, we're gonna have to pay the $1.25 for a phone call. I don't,
We don't have to make any decisions now, it was just an option for me to be
no,
able to
that's why
get
I'm
meters.
saying,
Well, let me see, take a look at what else is out there. I mean,
Let's
if
look
we-
at options
If
here.
it goes that way, now, if we did the other meters from somebody else, they're gonna work with the rest of our system?
No, now you're gonna have two systems.
yeah, well, we may have to do that. May have to have two systems for a while and work them over, switch them over.
And we're still working through with the billing system, trying to.
I mean, we got enough money being spent, treatment and everything else, never mind somebody else trying to rob us there. So, yeah, come up with, get some representatives from other companies and let's look at other products. I mean, we've done that before.
Yeah, no, I know.
We've done it a number of times. We always seem to go back to Badger, but.
It's always worth checking out, and if they did start getting the chips for the MEs, it doesn't solve the data.
No, it doesn't solve the data problem. It takes a great outcry from the people force them back or make them change it.
All right, well, we'll be looking forward to more information on that one.
Yeah.
At next meeting. How about this application for Plymouth County ARPA grant?
Did I bookmark that? So, I don't know anything about it, so I'm not sure which programs you're gonna send to it.
What is the
Well,
ARPA?
that's the money, that's on, because I had gotten a call from Denise Reyes about, she was dealing with the people in Plymouth County, and when the feds first came out with the ARPA money, most counties gave it to the state to distribute. Plymouth County and some of the others kept it, and they're actually distributing the money. They're making noise about how much money is actually going to be really given compared to what was originally discussed. And one of the things that was mentioned is there is an online application, and you should get the application in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like final numbers, and also it can include engineering fees in the numbers. So that was brought up, so we should be looking at starting that application, because I think that was at the 1.3 million that they were talking about. I think that's
1.4.
something in that range, so we want to make sure we get that application in, so suddenly we don't find out, oh,
Is this for the PFAS?
It would go for the treatment. That's what, when it first came up, was for the PFAS.
Oh, okay.
But it basically can go, the county, you have to apply to the county, tell them what you're gonna use it for them to then come back and approve it and give it to you.
Okay.
Like I said, she called me last week about it, 'cause she was talking to the people, there's been some emails back and forth.
Who
between
was that?
Denise Reyes. So between her, David, and this guy at the county.
So are they making the application for us, or?
No, we have to do the application.
So, Wayne, are you aware of what you gotta do for this?
You'd have to tell me what you wanna put in for it, it's not,
Oh, but you
Even
found
if
you looked up the application.
I'm gonna give you it right now.
Yep.
I did find it. I asked for 5.
Yeah, because of course it's an online application.
See if following.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've got median out.
That lowest quintile thing, we spent a couple of hours searching for that one.
Did you ask town accountant or anything like that?
No,
See if there's somebody like that might know.
we can try maybe the assessor's office.
Somebody in town hall should be able to come up with, because that's gotta be a number that they use for all kinds of different funding things.
So does the project prioritize median household income? The median household income here is 111,964.
You guys owe me a raise. I'm below that, but that's a combined income, that's not.
Huh?
That's a combined income, like most
House, not
houses.
individual.
Oh, because I was gonna say, it used to be a couple of years ago, it was $64,000.
But I don't have anybody to combine with, so you still owe me a raise. Yeah, so that just means for everybody that's under, there's a few people that make some good money in town.
Okay.
So, this can go for the treatment.
This can-
It looks like you could submit applications for every project you're doing.
Yeah, but the idea is to, I don't think town hall, because they're the ones that talked to them originally. I believe when it first came out about the amount that was put aside, I don't think it was pinned down to a specific project. So what we'd be looking to put in, I think, would be, let's say, all the treatment projects.
Right.
That would be, you know, it's subcategory, it's water, you know, we have the public water supply ID number to go into it.
Which
That's ours.
James, when he gets here, he can answer to that, because I know he said that we were approved for a percentage of principal forgiveness.
Oh, on the SRF.
Yeah,
But that, I mean, basically would be requesting, I believe, that full ARPA share of what was supposed to be set aside for us.
right.
What it, like I said, I thought it was 1.3, 1.4, whatever it is. The rest is other revenues.
Yeah,
And
because
we
then,
take the total estimated project cost that they give us for that work.
right.
So, are you gonna make the application, or who's gonna do it?
It doesn't look like it requires an engineering signature, so I can probably put it in for both of them. I'm just not sure what money requested ARPA share. Well, obviously, we'd like them to pay 100%.
No, but I think that's the dollars that we put in, you know, would request the amount of money that was supposed to be set aside.
Yeah, which I don't know, because that didn't come to us.
No, we can get that from, again, I know it might even be in the emails that were going back and forth. I'll look at that, find out what that is and double check that that's supposed to be what's in there. The total comes from Tater and Howard, and the other revenue is just the difference,
Right.
right? 'Cause I don't think those are percentage, I think those are supposed to be dollars,
Right.
right? And the rest of it, I mean, subcategory part must just be a pull down and pick out water treatment or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think that the Board of Selectmen are really looking for us to try, you know, they're pushing for the state and the county there to help us with some of the funding for our treatment. So I think we ought to get our application in there. If there's some money available, we gotta get it.
No, definitely. And again, that money supposedly was originally, that's what it was being
Right,
earmarked towards.
right, that's
Was for
why.
this, so we wanna make sure.
We don't wanna
have-
put, we don't wanna put any other foolish projects in there. We wanna put the one for treatment, because that's the ones that they're probably gonna fund. They're not gonna fund any other.
No, I think the other things would be, that would be pushing it, but it was related to, I don't think it was strictly to the PFAS, I think it was just related to water treatment in general, so we could put in the numbers for both things, because the higher the number of the total cost is, the more pressure there is to give us the
Right.
full amount, because you know, it's not like we're asking for $1.3 million for a $1.5 million project.
Right.
So put in for the iron removal plant and the,
Yeah, I think that's, and I'll, like I said, I'll confirm through Denise, you know, if that's what they, if there's any restrictions on what they put in that original application.
we have to figure out how we're gonna pay for it anyway, so we might as well get all the money we can get to
Yeah.
help.
But yeah, I mean, if there is the principal forgiveness on the SRF, that'll be a big help too.
Yeah. Well, now, with interest rates going up. So, on old business, Wayne, how's, Howard, Tyler and Howard, they're doing with the pilot study?
It's up and running today.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, nice. I see headlights coming down the drive.
Right. Is that for
That's for station one. So after they finish station one, they'll decide whether they're gonna run pipe through the woods. This time of year, I don't see that happening. It's just a box. I don't know why they even thought about that.
Just move the box.
Yeah, it's a shipping container that they've, turned into a lab.
Let's see, update of replacement wall?
So we have approval to put it to the street, and I did try to do it on Friday, but it wasn't producing what I thought it should have been producing, and it was raining Friday, so I would have done it today, but 2 guys were out, so it was just me and another guy, and wasn't an easy morning. So tomorrow, when everybody's here, we'll block off the system so I can run it through a flow meter and see what it does.
Okay.
We skipped over Manley Street. Is any update on what's gonna schedule for there?
I know that the DEP approved the treatment plant modifications. He just walked in and he's scratching his head.
Sorry, Manley Street?
Yeah, I believe that was approved for us to go ahead.
Yes, so if we're talking about the modifications of the plant, so
Yeah.
that is correct. We also got permission from DCAM to solicit bids. So we have our final design into the electrical engineer for them to stamp that. Our process design has already been through our own QA/QC. So once we get the structural, then we consider that to be final documents. We'll provide them to Wayne for one last look, and then we'll provide him with our short list of all the contractors we would recommend getting pricing from. And if there's anybody who,
I have an
we should add to
electrical
the list.
company that I want to add to the list.
What's that?
I have an electrical company that I want to add to the list.
We're gonna have to file sub bids in this.
There's no sub bids.
No sub bids.
It's actually it's an expedited bidding process because of the emergent nature of the project, and the lead times for media, and all that. So it's, plus I don't think the electrical is gonna be above 25. Really the only electrical work we have are the 2 electrically actuated valves. So because we're interfacing with the existing treatment facility, it needs to automatically isolate our tanks when it's backwashing. We can't pull, chlorinated water backwards through our vessel. So it's got, these valves that will automatically open and close based on the backwash cycle. So from an electrical standpoint, it's not much. It's, I think, a sub panel, just so that we don't have to mess with the existing panel. And then there'll be some integration work just to get those valves working with the existing backwash.
When do you think you'll have the documents to Wayne for review?
So we are currently harassing, I guess is the polite word, our electricals up to get that back because, like I said, everything else is good to go. We wanted to essentially be able to go up to bid as soon as we got the DCAM approval. It's like when it said first we had to clear the DEP hurdle, but we cleared that a few weeks ago. So I can say as soon as we can get those in-house, we'll be pushing them.
Our last PFAS number was 19.2.
19.2.
So it went up, but
It's going up again.
But we're still under.
We're still under. It's taken a lab, it took them almost a month for the November sample. So the December sample I pulled as fast as I could, but we probably won't hear about that until January.
So are you trying to backwash those filters a little bit more?
Yeah, that was working, but like I said, I believe when we were in the drought and the numbers were dropping, the drought was it. And once we started getting rain, that's when the numbers started to climb again, because now you're washing whatever it is towards us.
It seems like you climbed the same time last year.
Yeah.
we'll see
Like
how
we
high it
hit
goes.
19 in late October last year.
Yeah, that's when we were first testing too, so, yeah, and then it went down as we went into the summer drought.
Yeah.
No, even if it stayed down, it was down to 12, 15 range, we'd still have to go through
Yeah,
doing this anyways.
no matter what, if you're above
Yeah,
10, you've
you're
gotta
above
do it.
One-
I mean, and we're all expecting the limits to keep going down, or for them to include more than just the 6. I think that's probably the thing we're most worry about now is that, you know, they're already kind of testing the waters with some of that, and you know, maybe it's not necessarily they drop the MCL down to 10, but maybe now you're looking at 9 different PFAS compounds, and then who knows what, you know, what that looks like depending on what's picked. So
So we're gonna be looking at more, so now all of a sudden we could have to change the media and the vessels to
so
take out more.
I don't think so. I mean, we could look specifically. It's hard to say without knowing what compounds they'd be looking at. But in terms of going lower, this technology is, you know, it just takes it all, right? So it's going to be down to non-detect until it breaks through. So whether whether it's, you know, 19 or 10 coming in, the MCL doesn't matter. What matters is how quickly you're using up the available media. So then you're talking about more frequent, you know, media replacement.
We're part of the UMCR 5 study, so I think we're slated for 2024 for testing.
Yeah, so then the other piece of that is that project was on the IUP list that just came out on Friday. So we're still, you know, they've been a little bit vague so far on what that looks like, but they're saying that PFAS-related projects could be eligible for 0% interest. And then we're seeing numbers of principal forgiveness up to 49%. So the PFAS project specifically scored very well. But the Manley Street one also, that was also on the IUP list. So I guess something to start thinking about is what have you appropriated so far in terms of design or construction of either of those? And are you in a position to take advantage of, you know, those opportunities? Because I think prior to getting that news, we all thought, you know, iron manganese was going to go first. But I can't tell you the last time we've seen interest-free loans as part of, you know, the SRF program. So could be looking at a, you know, uniquely advantageous, you know, financial opportunity. So I think that's, you know, the next month or so, as we get more information on what those loans actually look like, and start to figure out, is every project getting 49%? Is it just the disadvantaged communities? You know, I think it's very likely that the PFAS will get all of those great benefits. And then depending on how they consider, you know, the manganese as an emerging contaminant, that could be just as attractive. And then we have to just decide what we can, you know, be prepared to invest in immediately. Because what that's going to do is accelerate your time frame. You know, we're looking at October 15th, they'd expect things designed. So from our standpoint, that's a very quick, you know, it's doable, but that's, you know, about as quickly as we could turn around and design. That would include, you know, getting the survey and the site work going almost immediately. And in the case of, you know, this site here, we might have to start doing that before the pilot is even done. So those are just things that, you know, we can think about over the next month and strategize. Because it kind of goes back to the schedule. You know, we had just sent you a, you know, kind of a fiscal year breakdown of when things were going to happen, and we just pushed PFAS out, thinking it was going to happen after iron and manganese. And so, do we need to reevaluate that? So that, I think that's big picture. This is obviously all good news, but hopefully it's good news we can, you know, act on simultaneously, or it might not be feasible on your end. I don't know.
But another reason we need to get that in as far as the ARPA money, to have that money to go ahead and make sure we have it, and that they don't hold some of it back. Because that's a good chunk of money right there for us to be able to start.
Yeah. So I know we've given you a bunch of numbers back around, like when you were planning the last appropriation, but I don't recall, was any design appropriated at that? I know we haven't given you any contracts or anything, but I think we've maybe given you some, you know, budgetary costs on design, permitting, construction. So I was just curious if anything's been appropriated, or if you guys will need help.
We appropriated something.
Is it springtime in your annual, spring annual
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, and we just had a special,
Just had a special, yeah.
but it probably was a good thing that we didn't have any expensive stuff on that.
Yeah,
way
and we-
They weren't in the spending mood.
No,
would have potentially been premature anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think a lot of the attitude there was, a lot of people were talking about, we gotta fix the water. And then, and they all realized we got some big bills coming up. So thank God they did understand the importance of this PFAS that we gotta treat.
So what did we appropriate?
So we appropriated for the Sierra and Norman Ave pilot $240,000.
okay, so that's what's happening now.
Yep. And then the Manley Street pilot, we appropriated $193,200. But I think you're not gonna do the pilot, so this money's that's appropriated.
Right, so if we were to take advantage of this program, we've had conversations with DEP where if we, we would have the option to move forward with the media that we're essentially piloting now. We wouldn't need to go through a pilot to determine the media. The idea would be that as long as we've got a proof of concept where the media we put in, now is working, then instead of piloting, we would just design the expansion to be redundant to that unit, right? So, at that point, in other applications, we might think it's worthwhile to put the, granular activated carbon side by side with the resin and see for this specific raw water what's more effective. But the reality is if you can take advantage of the SRF funding, save a year of time piloting, chances are that payback period is going to really shrink.
Save that 193 grand.
Save 109, yeah.
From that, and realistically, you could do that with the existing raw water for the contaminants that we have, and then have them change the rules. And it might not turn out, you could see those change on the answer, depending on exactly what you're looking for too.
Yeah, so this would be an application where we may even, suggest skipping the pilot and going straight into the design, assuming that the initial indications of the media we're putting in now, is working well for you. And most of the reason why we can make that recommendation is because DEP agrees that there is enough data in the state of Massachusetts to say that these media work for PFAS in Massachusetts. So we've successfully piloted this in multiple communities, and it's been designed and constructed in multiple places in the state now. So even DEP would be okay with skipping the pilot test for assuming we go with the
That's
media
great,
that's
that
got
again, that
approval.
buys us almost 200 grand that we don't have to go back and
Yeah.
hit people on again.
Yeah.
And you're not,
Yeah,
you're not losing the year.
Once you've studied it, don't study it to death and keep spending money, just move on.
Right.
Spend the money on something that you're gonna get more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
No arguments.
I mean, and I think back when we recommended that, the circumstances were a little bit different. But I think now that we're kind of where we are, I think the other piece of that was we wanted to pilot, switching from IOX to a more traditional, so we could still do that as part of the design. But, originally the idea was to combine these two pilots into one. But if we don't have to do the PFAS one, certainly we wouldn't recommend you guys spending $190,000 on a pilot we could skip.
And what would we have to do as far as changing from the MIOX? Would we still have to do
I
some
think
amount
we
of
would-
piloting for DEP?
I think we have to do something, yeah, just so that we can fill out the forms for DEP. We have to permit that as a modification.
Yeah.
So they'll just want us to show that determine what the appropriate dosing is. We're gonna have to propose what the, mechanism, like are we flow pacing it, how are we dosing it? They're gonna look at what it does for, sampling out in the distribution system.
They've already tripped me back.
Yeah, we're tripping it left and right, it seems, right? Because they got you for well 5, which I think is ridiculous. I think it's absurd. But they're going to get you for the PFAS we're doing now anyway.
They apologized to me, but said it wasn't them, it was the lady in Boston who's not answering my email.
Good cop, bad cop, maybe.
Yeah. Each side throws the other one under the
You're right,
same bus.
so that's my turn to fall on the sword for this
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so I guess on the PFAS, that's, I think the next big thing is to look at, obviously we have to get this out to bid now,
Yeah.
which is why we've, tried to expedite everything, so that, we've been in constant contact, the media's gonna be available, so it's a matter of getting a contractor signed up, get that flanged pipe on order, so that we can get that in and start collecting that data, show that it's working.
A long lead time on the pipe, or?
I don't know, because this is, manufactured flange pipe, we haven't seen as much in terms of delays on that. But, everything makes us nervous right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like the VFDs where we're still waiting on, the VFD for well 5, it's been 6 months since we approved it.
Yeah, I think the last I knew, you told me mid-January maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hopefully it's not where they gotta come back in and put some parts in after the fact, like the cars and trucks.
Right, I know what you're saying.
So the next thing, at the asset management grant, that, we're pretty much done with that, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
So we've
that,
closed that out with the state, and submitted the final reimbursement, so hopefully you got that check from them.
I got an original one, but I know I have something from somebody asking for information, so I'll have to dig through my pile.
Okay, if there's anything you need us to answer, just let me know.
Yeah, I'll look and see what,
yeah, so that could almost be taken off the old business list there.
I think it is off. I don't
No,
think
it's still there.
It's still there.
Oh, she was supposed to have that.
I mean, it's possible it's there
Throw
because
her under the bus.
the rate study was part of that. So
Oh, maybe.
it's still on there, so we can, if we want to continue the conversations about rates.
Okay, Walnut Street tank.
Yes, so we are finalizing the report. We'll have that submitted by the end of the year. But we went through a couple scenarios, and I think the one that, is gonna be not surprising, but what seems to make the most sense is to install an altitude valve at Spring Street, and then run off of Walnut Street. That gives us the best in terms of, the water age coming down, and more, that allows us to fluctuate the Walnut Street tank more, and then the Spring Street, will still be able to fluctuate. So technically, the water age doesn't get down to like the 5 range that we would, shoot for designing a new system. So we might have to look at putting in an active mixing system for the 5 million gallon tank, since we're now going to be making things a couple days worse, at the big tank site to make things better at the
The
low.
big tank is already an issue with water age anyways, cause I failed total coliform in the summer months,
Yeah.
and it's that tank.
So
Did you guys run the model around town to see if we have a gate closed somewhere or something like that that's
So nothing
causing this?
yeah, nothing like that popped up. We're using, standard, curves and, charting the levels. And we did look at, if we upsize this main, if we did these, to any of that improve, and nothing really moved the needle. So I don't know that we've,
What doesn't make sense to me is we got a 16-inch main going from the bottom of the 5 million gallon tank up Crescent Street, changes to a 12 going down West Street, all the way up Manley Street, right to the bottom of that Walnut Street tank. And they're not, one's filling faster than the other. With a 16-inch and a 12-inch main, I just can't see how they're not filling. We're only pumping the water in at 1,500 gallons a minute, that's not that much water. That's a column of water, about that big. And we got a 16-inch main on the bottom of each of those tanks, and I can't visualize why those two big mains, there's such a delay in filling them equally. And it
The water-
seems to
the
me
water's
that there's
gotta
a
go
gate
by it.
closed, there's gotta be a gate closed, something.
The water's gotta go by it from down here, it goes past those tanks to get out to Walnut Street. So it's gonna fill this one first, unless you'd have to have an enormous loop going through there, a lot bigger than what we have, to make those just float even.
But we got Manley Street up there running, and that runs a lot. And that's going right up Manley Street direct, and that's not going by the other tanks.
No, it's not running, when we have that running. But normally, the size of those mains isn't gonna be enough to let those tanks just float. You gotta be able to shut one off and let the other one finish, basically. And from Manley Street, it goes by west and goes right down the pipe you just talked about, too. So that helps, that's gonna split and go to both tanks. So, I mean, like, you did enough calibration runs before that you should have been finding if any large pipes.
Yeah, nothing like that, I feel like that would have come up, or the level charts would have been out of whack with what you're experiencing too. It's not like we're modeling with the pipe open and everything looks great, but then in reality, things are, the model is showing, that issue of, the tank's not being balanced.
Plus, we literally tested every gate from the tank all the way out to the other tank.
But did you shut all the?
We
feet
shut and closed
all
open
the legs
spaces, yep,
off that 16, closed the,
yep.
closed the 12 at Walnut Street.
We shut it off so that we were just running the 16, and we went leg by leg from hydrant to hydrant to make sure we had flow going from next to next to next to next.
Right at the intersection of West and Crescent, you open that hydrant right there on the 16,
Yep,
and we did that years ago, and we got nothing. No water whatsoever. And it was because there's reverse gates in the 16-inch main going back to the tank. The first one coming out of the tank in the street, on Spring Street, was closed.
Because it opens the opposite
Yes,
direction.
and they're all over town. It isn't one or two, there's 50 of them at least. And when you get new guys, they don't know that which way the gates are opening and which way they're closing. And I got a feeling that there's a gate there somewhere that's partially open or partially closed. Those are butterfly valves too. And they'll still transfer water. First thing a guy does, if he's not sure whether he's got the gate open or closed, what does he do? Puts it halfway.
Yep.
And you're in a butterfly valve, if you got it halfway, you're gonna restrict the flow. You're not gonna shut it off, but you're gonna restrict it. And I just got a feeling that there's something like that in that system that's hindering that flow that we're not seeing.
When you went and ran the lines from between the tanks, when you ran
We
them
ran-
all the way down and all the way back up. right?
yep, and we tested both as we went up Crescent Street, not just the 16, we tested the 6-inch beside it. So we tested everything, all the way from the tank, all the way out. And that was part of, it was a total call form, it was a level 2 thing that I did as a recommendation. I can tell you we got a rounded off gate nut now up at Western Crescent, but
Were you here when we,
I think so, yeah.
that
Yep.
gate was
Yeah,
closed?
that was down, there's a bypass up there at North Elm and Spring. Where it bypasses over to the, I believe it's the 8.
Yeah, we had to shut those bypasses off to really test it, I remember we had to find every single one of them. Because if you're because you're getting a bypass from the 6 site or 4 that's feeding the 16. It's the 16 is supposed to be feeding the 4, but you could be getting water into the 16 just from that. And that could be coming all the way off of another larger main, that's feeding that, so. I don't know, something just doesn't seem right.
One of the things we prepared, through the report is showing the levels over time of each tank, and so it's partially for us to set the altitude valve at an effective point where you're not locking the tank out longer than you have to. So you kind of play with that, so you see where you're essentially clipping off the top of your chart, because essentially, you're locking out your tank. So we do the same thing with the existing conditions for comparison purposes. So one of the things we could look at with Wayne is, how closely is this matching your experience? And if it's not linking up, that might indicate that there's something like that happening where the model assumes something's open or closed. But short of that happening, I don't know how we would use our model to find that valve unless we start, opening hydrants and comparing pressure drops and flows in our model to what you're seeing. Because nothing, unless something in our analysis shows that they're not linking up,
When you were done testing out in the past.
Right.
And ran that model to calibrate. So
Yep.
if there was anything, you might not pick up some small pipes if it had a valve closed. But something like a 16 or the 12, the main feeders, if they were closed, you should have picked them up.
Right, agreed.
So when will it have the altitude valves in?
Hopefully after I retire, because I think everything's gonna pop.
Well, it's part of the model, when you have pressure estimates outside in all those lines when the altitude valve
Yep, so, yeah,
closes. So
so
nothing, I'm assuming nothing showed up excessive,
Correct.
or you would have flagged it.
Yeah, if anything, we're seeing some areas where you already had bad pressure and things might drop a couple PSI. Just because you're allowing the tanks to drop lower to get more fluctuation.
Okay.
It's male.
So we're just making sure that nothing is dropping below, 35 PSI. But there are some that were, they're pretty close to 35 PSI now, but they were only getting 37.
When they're close to the tank to begin with.
Yeah.
Yes, I know where they are.
Yeah, well, I did check this, I had been here, I think, with that day DEP didn't show up and we went over some things. I had jotted down the areas that we talked about and, went and looked in the model and, they're still getting 35 PSI, even though those ones we were most worried about.
All right, well, the next thing on the list here, have you heard anything on the composting facility?
I sent them a letter, I made sure I sent the letter to the planning board and the zoning, didn't hear anything back.
All right. We're gonna, the next one's gonna be the water rates, so that's gonna be a long discussion. We got two more things. Have you heard anything on the solar?
So Kerry did a thing, because I need the money part of it, but I warned her it wasn't as easy, and the number she came back with, I said, Kerry, I've spent that much already. And that's what she was giving me, so it requires more looking the way, because we're already subsidized, and it's subsidized in a weird kind of way, so I just have to have time, but we've had some things go on that just don't allow me to have any time, let alone take a day off. I will get to it before the next meeting, hopefully, and be able to give UMass a call. But I know there's a number, they wanted, it's not free, they want you to be spending X amount in utilities. So I'll do the electric plus the gas.
Try to get something to them so we can see if we can get some money from them to,
Yep.
and they'll do the study for free. The job posting, anything on that?
So we interviewed somebody, but I don't know, well, it sounded like he thought he might be in his own truck driving around, I don't know. But I probably scared him away when I pointed out that we were gonna train him for asbestos, and oh, by the way, that vat of chemicals over there will take his skin off instantaneously.
Yeah, he didn't seem too bad, but at least he did say right out he was already looking at another couple of
Right.
jobs. So
He was looking at what?
he was looking at other jobs as well. This wasn't the only place he was interviewing. So.
He was smart enough to think, He wasn't sure about his math skills. Another group came in, I'm not gonna talk about it now because I could disclose who the person is, but Linda sent over some more resumes today. And I just don't, I kinda know why somebody would jump, but
Did she say if he contacted her about,
she hadn't said anything. I'll send her an email tomorrow saying, you know, we told him to give you a call if he has any interest.
All right, so we don't have any exciting applicants at this moment.
No.
Okay, so now we're gonna go back to water rates.
So we updated, and I feel like this conversation's gonna say updated again, but we'll talk about what we have for now.
It's in a flux, everything's changing.
Yeah.
If
So,
if you're not shovel ready, then when they give you the money to start digging with, then you lose.
yeah. So what we did here, if you recall, when I came in with the laptop and we connected everything up, we were pretty aggressive. In other words, we're trying to be the most conservative with the upcoming capital costs. And so what we did was we kind of went back and looked at what is a more realistic range of dates and kind of spread things out a little bit more to kind of show how much per year we're going to be spending. So just to kind of go back over some assumptions, we assumed that anything that was engineering was going to be an appropriation through annual town meeting, and then anything that was construction was going to be bonded at the average, the current rates over the 20.
So that's our budget increase in the bottom for
Yes.
each year?
Yep. And so, so this was just kind of to show, there's really this 5-year spread where you're looking at, $1 million the year we're kind of in the halfway through, right? And then,
That's a 50% increase right there in our budget. We're going from 2 million to 3 million, right?
exactly.
And then a year later, we're gonna be up to 3,700,000. And then a year after that, we're gonna be up to 4 million. So we're looking at, within 3 years, our budget's gonna be, what, tripling?
close?
Holy smokes.
So he said it as it was compounding, but is it in fiscal year 23, you're figuring it's $1 million onto our budget, and then in fiscal 24, you're figuring it's only 720,000?
Yeah, right, so fiscal
Yeah, it's not
23 is
additive
heavy
every
because you're doing all the design, right? So you have to appropriate that all at once.
But it's
You're
basically
drawing
gonna jump
down
about
on
$1
that.
million a year for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, but as you
Close
get,
to.
so you get further out from the design, everything else is essentially
Right.
your loan payment.
So these are to cover the debt of just the studies or to actually build a plant?
Yeah, all of it. So
All of
it's the piloting, it's the design, it's the construction. So I think I guess there are two counteracting items that kind of change the landscape. One is really it comes down to the opportunity with the SRF funding, right? So we're trying. I'm going to try to reach out to DEP and see if they have any better information. I think they're being intentionally vague at this point because I don't know if they've really decided yet. But I would like to try to get a better idea of, when they say, you may be eligible for 0% interest. It's like, okay, well, what other caveats can we, should we expect that we're going to qualify? So my interpretation would be that the Manley Street would probably qualify, but, the Sear Street probably would not qualify for the 0% interest. But they both, we wowould think, would be eligible for some principal forgiveness. And they're saying up to 49%, but I think that means they're gonna provide up to 49% of the total package as forgiveness. So I don't know if they're gonna actually say everyone gets 49%, or, the lead and PFAS projects are gonna get more, and so some of these other are gonna get less, but it all
It'll
comes
average
out,
out.
it all comes out to being 49% of that chunk of money is being, so that's what I would like to try to get a little bit more clarification from them on,
Yeah,
just because it helps this equation. If we have to slide Manley Street back up a year, but we can take out all of your interest payments, and we can take out some of the principal because it's gonna be forgiven.
Yeah.
My guess is even sliding this up, most years are gonna look better under an SRF opportunity. But the challenge is up front, you need to appropriate, and I understand that that's, you know, that can be a challenging thing to appropriate multiple projects all at the same time. So that's kind of the push and shove over the last 72 hours, you know, since we learned of this, you know, opportunity that, you know, the project scored well, right? I think we all said, oh, we'll put them in and see what happens, then we can make up our minds, and then they both scored well, and the program looks attractive, so it's, you know, theoretically it's.
Now, have you done anything with the Aqua Plymouth County applications?
I have not.
All right.
I can ask her in the office and see if anyone's familiar.
Yeah, because that's where we have like a 1.3 million of grant money through there that we need to pick up. And just got kind of through the selectmen, say we need to get the application in.
Okay.
And we're starting to do. And Wayne started looking at it and ran into a couple of missing pieces that we
Okay.
gotta figure out.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to let me know if there are any of those pieces we can.
Yeah,
help you
maybe
on.
he could help you with some of the missing pieces.
And we can pull the Manly pilot out of this table too now, right?
I think that would be, yeah, that's our current recommendation, especially if we're going after the SRF. I think
Yeah.
it would be a financially, you know, viable option. So, I mean, I think when we were running through the analysis, we were showing us trying to get between 1.5 and 1.7 of additional revenue. So you can see we don't have any years now where it's the 1.5, 1.7, where we spread this out. And again, I think even if we bring it back together, compress the schedule a little bit, then I'm hoping that the funding opportunity offsets any additional, you know, early investment. But, you know, that's kind of the question mark right now. But, you know, I think even if we're being incredibly optimistic, I do think the rates do need to go up.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, doing it incrementally, I think tends to be easier than all at once. But I don't know, you know, I think last time we talked, we said, we come up with a program where we're gonna look at getting more out of the base and a little bit less out of our tier. But I think that equation looks a little bit easier, if we can make our annual
Yeah,
investments.
depending on what the number we have to hit is, it definitely makes a difference on that as far as what we hit for the rates.
Yeah.
Plus, if we know what we can take off, that doesn't have to hit the rates, so, because that ARPA money, that won't have to hit the rates at all.
So there, yeah,
And I think there's other money through the town had put aside also,
So right now,
somewhere.
the retrofit for Manly for the PFAS, I think that's all paid for, that
Yeah.
between the state and the town, that's all set.
Yeah, that was not supposed to be, and that's outside of the 1.3 million. That was set up through, was it Du Bois and
Yeah, and somebody
in
else.
the beginning, they had that whole thing set up, so yeah, that would come out.
and that's not taken into account here, but it is taken into account in our last report we had done. We had made some assumptions when we essentially took, if you recall, we started with your budget and then we
Yeah.
projected it out, then we did our capital investment program, added those costs in, and before we kind of pulled in what our revenue, you know, deficit is, we assumed the 350,000, I think, for the Manley Street, and then 1.3 that would be applied towards the construction projects.
So that money was already out of that.
So that money was already out of the equation when I brought the spreadsheets in
Okay.
that day.
Another reason we gotta pin down that 1.3 million too then, as we come forward on the raise.
Yeah. Well, my budget's going to hell and back, cause, the $15,000 KOH fill-up now is what, 24 something? It's rising.
Well, next budget, you're just gonna have to,
I don't even know how to
Put it on.
guess where everything's going. Like, the pumps I'm buying were 2,500, they're now 4,200.
no, we'll look at what we spent in the last year and figure on spending it again and bumping it up 20%, 25%, there's at least something.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's unfortunate, because there's no control over it. You have to have the KOH, and you can't tell them, no, I'm not gonna pay that.
Right. I'll give you this percentage.
I'll give you this much.
Well, we're already got, it's already being bid at the lowest
Right.
bidder in the whole county, so
Yeah,
it's not like you're gonna get it any cheaper.
So I think the next thing I have on, my to-do list related to the rates is just to start reaching out to DEP and see if I can get any clarity on what the program's gonna look like for our specific projects. And then, I guess you'll have your discussions about, what you want to do about
because
it.
I mean, that's the biggest thing that's gonna hit us on the rates, is what we have to pay on these.
Yeah.
So, yeah, knowing what, from the DEP side, that money's gonna come from.
It helps a lot to know in advance, but whether they give us a crystal ball. I remember there was discussion that they wanted to try to force them to make a lot of it principal forgiveness, or parts of it principal forgiveness. But you got cities that are getting clobbered with the lead because they used lead service lines and they never replaced them because it's too costly. I know Fall River just came into an agreement to replace out their service lines. I saw that somewhere. That means they get money somewhere.
Well, we did ours back in the 50s, I think. When I got here in 76, all those lead goose ducks, we only had a few of them left.
Yeah.
We were finding a few, but they had gone out and replaced most of them, way back. And that was without the state helping us pay for any of it, or anything, or anybody helping us. But the towns that don't do anything, now all of a sudden they get bailed out because they didn't do anything.
Yeah, you don't always,
It's that economically disadvantaged that is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the same thing with the feedbacks, right? So like the communities that, were behind the eight ball got all the funding, and the communities that are trying to get out ahead of it were
Yeah.
without any funding. So it was just, it's the way some of these programs go.
Years ago, they had a meter program, and they were the state was going to help towns meter their communities. So I put in for it, and I said, we were buying Brockton's old meters that were 50 years old, and we were rebuilding them ourselves, and we were putting them into our system. And so I said, we'd like to buy new meters. And they said, well, we got towns that never put meters in at all, so we're gonna fund them because they don't have any meters. I said, well, that was poor management. They didn't have any, at least we were trying. And they said, well, you guys have 100% of your meters in, your town's 100% metered. But I said, they're inaccurate. They're only registering about 50% of the water. And they said, well, at least you got meters. I said, your logic here doesn't make any sense at all. So we didn't get any money at all. And a town that had no meters in their system, didn't even try, they were fully funded.
Yeah. Yeah, you see it.
That's the way the state looks at it a lot of times. It doesn't make any sense to me. All right, well, we just gotta have to raise the rates to meet the bill. We gotta find out what the bill's
yeah,
gonna
I'd say
be.
the more, any idea on how long it's gonna take to get that kind of info out of DEP?
I'm gonna try calling them this week and just see if they even have any information to share yet. But I mean, at some point they have to iron it out because we need to start doing the paperwork, right? So we're
Yeah.
gonna have the application. I feel like the list came out a little early this year. I don't remember hearing in December. I feel
Well,
like-
tell them that we gotta raise our rates in advance, because if we're gonna do these projects, and it depends on how much we gotta raise, we can't find out that we gotta raise more after we've already shipped the water. You
Right.
know what I mean? You can't, we gotta tell the people how much the rate's gonna be before they use it.
Yeah, well, right.
They get very upset when we say, well, the water that you used for the last 6 months, we gotta make it, 50% more expensive. They get very upset.
I can understand.
And DEP doesn't understand that a lot of times because, they're not dealing with the public. They're just dealing with us.
Well, we're gonna need to come up with more than one increase anyway. We're gonna have to do this over a course, an increase every year or
Oh, yeah.
every for a bit. So if we go a little high the first one, we can knock the increases down the next couple, just as we go through.
Yeah, I think,
Because
the sooner
we can't
you
be
get
caught
the
short.
Base rate.
I think we
increase, the
need,
better.
and the first time we go up, we gotta explain to everybody that this is a one-time increase, that this is gonna be a step increase in our rates as the projects get, more completed. The work gets completed, because, we don't want them to say, which I've heard before, tell them, oh, we just went up. 2 years ago you went up on us, now you're here, we're going up again.
2 years ago, we didn't have to build a PFAS plant and an iron and manganese removal plant either. I
Right,
mean, and the thing is, it is, you bite the bullet one way or the other. If you got potential funding, by pushing it all together, in the long run, you're gonna come out better off than if you try to, pick and choose one over the other, then you lose that and you're paying full boat potentially on one of the project that you delay.
I think they'll understand, they're just not gonna like it.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
do you
let
think we'd
either.
be
I
better
agree.
off bunch them together and make the number really big and try to get more money out of the state? A bigger percentage, a non-bigger
Well,
percentage,
the
but a
state,
bigger amount of
but the
money.
state's gonna look at it on each individual project anyway, so
Oh.
if we
Yeah, I
get
would like
it, if we get the money, like you said, with all the forgiveness and whatnot, but would risk losing that by delaying it, we wanna.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
We
yeah,
wanna
you do a
just delay it.
on each one.
We don't wanna delay it if we're gonna risk losing it.
Right, and you don't want to risk losing some of the benefits you're getting from the PFAS being part of the PFAS
Emerging.
sub-program, right?
Yeah.
Because we're suspecting that's going to be the most attractive loan packages are going to be related to the PFAS projects and the lead. But
There are only like 43 communities that had issues with that, I thought. It's not as big or as widespread. Once you get away from the industrial part of it, you don't see it as much.
What, there's only 42 out of 300 communities of Massachusetts?
I believe that's what I
that have
saw, yeah.
PFAS?
Yeah.
Really? How the heck did we end up with it?
Probably because we're next to industrial.
Area. Well, the shoe factories were all there,
Yeah,
it was
that's
all factories.
kind of upstream from us, for the groundwater flow.
Yeah, all our water comes from them.
Yeah. So who knows what got put up there?
Right. Yeah, water comes from the north down this way,
And-
it's coming from Brockton.
And again, this stuff, it's not like it's optional, it's not like we're saying, we wanna do that, we want a shiny new administration building here, or something like that, or,
I'd love one.
I'm sure, yep, but, I mean, this stuff's not optional,
Right.
you have to do it.
It's not.
And
No, there's no frills in there,
No,
that's for sure.
and we're not, none of it's being done as Cadillac type jobs either, it's just what you have to do to make it work. So, that's all you have to, it's all you can explain, there's not really much of anything else you can do.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna be sitting here waiting to hear from you after you talk to DEP
yeah,
and you let us know what you think our best way of getting the most amount of money
yeah.
for help.
Okay, yeah, so I'll push them. I don't know if I'll give them, they might not know yet.
Yep.
So it might be a back and forth before I have a clear answer for you. But they have to figure it out sooner than later themselves because they have to start, underwriting loans, so.
Okay.
We'll get you the info.
Like I said, in the past, sometimes we've looked at the loan products and not used them because the town accountant was able to get a better deal. But if you can get,
You can get a
if you
zero.
can get a
that's-
zero,
you
or
can't
you
beat
can
that.
get any of that, then that's not an issue.
Right.
So we more than likely would be going with the SRF and something like
Yeah,
that.
I was
So-
talking to Karen from her office, and she said she can't remember a time in the last 20 years where
Either
0%
way, yeah.
interest was a thing through SRF, so could be a unique opportunity to take
Well, that's
advantage
the thing, you bunch it all together, but if you're getting 0% in, 2 years from now, you're gonna have to get it at 3. You're crazy not to wait.
And because the technology is gonna scale well, so it's not, because you're gonna be getting down to non-detect, you don't run a risk of, going for a goal line that then is moved for you in 10 years.
No, like you said, it's just more a matter of, do you use up the media
Yeah.
a little bit faster?
But then it becomes an O&M cost, not a capital cost.
Yeah.
So you gotta budget for media replacement every X years.
Which we won't know what that number will be.
Until you do your first one, honestly,
Yeah.
right? Because I think we projected out 3 years, is the media life, but until you start running your water through the media, we won't know.
That
for
was
sure.
based on the numbers we were hitting before,
That was based on 21.
and that was 21 year round, so even if it's seasonal, that it goes down and comes up, we
Yeah,
can
so
still
if you
get
got
it.
it 20,
hopefully
if you're
get
at 20 for
extended
3
life.
months, but then you're at 14 for 3 months and 12 for 6 months, you'll get much more life out of it.
Yeah. Keep our fingers crossed on that.
I guess we didn't really talk about the iron and manganese, but the pilot unit is here and set up, right?
He's running.
And it's running, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, we gave him water today. He was running around. So he is running. We'll make some adjustments so that we stop flooding ourselves out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so our message to him is gonna be, as soon as this thing is over, we need a report in our hands now.
Yeah.
Because we might be turning this into a treatment plant by October, right, design.
So how long is he gonna be at this one before he moves to the others?
I thought it was like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think, because we were trying to just set up at one that we thought was worst case, but DEP wanted.
Yeah, because this one's manganese, the other one is iron.
Right, so that was the issue, was one had higher iron but lower manganese in the site, the other was the opposite.
The other one's got ferrous iron instead of manganese.
Yeah, so it was, we think we could have designed it based on the data, but.
This one here never used to have any manganese at all. It used to just be all ferrous iron. But now you say you're getting manganese down here?
Yeah, but when they redid Station 1, I mean, none of us realized they were vacuum wells, so you didn't see in them ever, but they were pretty much collapsed with sand. So we were probably filtering it out as we were pulling in what little water we were pulling out of that station. Which is odd, because Station 4...
What, the screens collapsed?
Yeah, something happened that they said that they were pretty much filled up with sand.
Really?
Yeah.
That'll cut your production out pretty quick. when you-
Yeah.
Yeah, we had issues trying to keep it running. It was a fight.
But we had a successful site visit from DEP on well 5,
Yeah.
so we got their approval.
I tried to put that to the street. I'll be maybe calling you tomorrow.
Okay.
It didn't go well because I didn't get what I thought I should out of it. So
Oh,
we're gonna run it through the flow meter without going to the street first so I can see what it does without back pressure.
Okay,
But I think I only jumped like 10 or 20 gallons a minute.
interesting.
So I'll wait and we're gonna do some tests tomorrow.
Okay.
Because on Friday it was pouring rain and I wasn't gonna be flipping gates. And,
Counted all the bowls when they put the pump in, right? They didn't leave
well, I
the bowl
didn't
up.
get to see it go in, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's a 3 bowler and
Okay. So, no,
You got 10 to 20, how much more were you expecting?
I was expecting probably about 80.
So did you see if it was pulling down the water and
It didn't pull the well down either.
it didn't pull the water, so the pump isn't pumping right?
Right.
Did they, If you switch the wires,
It was backwards at the start, so they
oh, it was
flipped it.
backwards, okay,
Yeah.
because that'll mess things up.
Yeah, cause I couldn't even get it to come
It'll
up out of the
pump, it'll
ground.
pump really slow.
Yeah, it goes backwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it'll pump water, but
yeah,
but
just,
it'll do, just like he said, it'll give you about 20 gallons a minute when you expect an 80 or 100.
so we'll see tomorrow when I can test it better and I can have everybody here and it's not pouring on us.
All right, anybody got any more questions for him, or?
Thinking of them, but I think pretty much answered all the ones I was thinking of ahead of time. And like I said, this, we can't really, be nice to sit you, if you could give us a when we can start really looking at those numbers, go like, I know, you gotta go through DEP and,
Yeah, I mean, we
They've
do
got
a
it all.
first pass making certain
Yeah.
assumptions, but.
but we get a little closer if it's, I mean, if we end up with it, like, a little under $1 million a year on top, or around $1 million a year on top after the funding, at least, we can start thinking about what we need to do with the rates.
Yeah.
And adjust it. Because we are gonna, you know, we are gonna have to get going with something with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we can get a bigger chunk of it out of DEP by moving some of it up and doubling the rate money, I think we're better off if we can get a chunk of the money paid by the state. Just do it, speed it up, but we'll see what you come up with the DEP.
Sounds good.
So, appreciate you coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Hit some bad traffic, did you?
It was brutal. I couldn't believe it. I was kind of limited because I had to get the kid off the bus into the sitter, and so I couldn't really leave any earlier than 3:45. But it takes me an hour to get here. It took me an hour and 45 minutes to get here today. I tried getting cute and going around it, but maybe everybody else did too. So,
usually-
it was all on 495 South. It was just
Oh, really?
nuts.
That's not usually a bad road.
It is not.
No,
I've never had a problem getting here before, so I don't know. I tried getting out around it, so I don't know if there was an accident or just bad luck. But then I think I'm finally here and I'm trying to get off, is it
Oh, you
24?
can't- Yeah, you can't.
And,
If you get on 106, good luck.
yeah, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not almost there.
No, not at this time of night.
Yeah,
That's-
that took a good bit of time to. But yeah, hopefully you guys weren't stuck waiting on me.
Oh, no,
No.
not a problem. Appreciate,
No,
appreciate you coming down.
Yep, anytime.
We do.
And then I'll come back, as soon as we have, anything you guys want to talk about, or if we get some clarity on the numbers, then I can get to come down and talk rates again.
No, I mean, because that's gonna be important for us to get that going,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and if we're looking at, designing two treatment plants by October 15th, then
I say, you're gonna have the capacity in-house to
We do.
get that done and.
we do. We have multiple treatment teams, so it wouldn't just be me.
So you're thinking
But we probably
biological?
wouldn't be the only client that you have that would also be chasing that same money, so you're gonna be tying people up.
Yeah, so I don't know that I don't know that we had any other treatment plants show up on the IUP list, other than your two.
Okay.
So we have a treatment plant now that's wrapping up construction, so that team's coming available. Plus, those of us who are doing the Manley Street are gonna be available to the next step of Manley Street. And we have redundancy in-house, so.
So you're thinking more biological on this end?
I think we've seen a lot of success with biological.
Now, what does that look like? Is it still just a big filter and with some reactions occurring inside, or is it more like a rotating contactor?
I'm not sure. We can get you some examples. I haven't done one, so.
I think Milford has one. I thought I saw they
Yeah.
have one.
is that
Our
what-
company has done them. We like them, but I haven't personally, got to go see one.
Yeah, the stuff I read on it sounded like it was closed
Is that the-
reactors.
is that
Like
Matapoiset
that
has?
type of filter, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Could be, because I think we worked on that.
Yeah, you did that one.
Yeah, so that might be one of the ones I'm thinking of. So we could always, go see one.
Yeah, he built that when we built the green sand, but they have a bed of, I don't know what the bed is, but it's different. It's almost like a treatment plant at a city, I think.
Yeah. I think what we would see is,
They don't have
multiple
tanks.
vessels, right? 'Cause you have the Magnashore and the Ferroshore. and one is, more effective with the magnet, and then you figure out, how many of each you need to get both down. So I think that's what the pilot test is gonna show us is, does that end up being more cost effective on a lifetime basis, or, going green sand plus, which is, not a lot different, but a little bit different than the Manley Street is now, just updated.
I know they had a lot of problems in the beginning, but I think they worked them all out. It was more just learning how to run the plant was their issues. I think once the guys figured it out, they did much better with it.
Yeah.
But if it was the biological, it would be one plant bring the different streams in to the different types. You have the magnet shore, the ferrous shore. So you could play something like that you could get the scale of the plant, pipe everything together from those two stations, but treat the water streams separately coming in. If one's significantly better than another.
It's a good question. It'd be something we'd have to look at to see if that ends up being more effective. But I think typically you would blend the water and then treat it. But maybe there would be some benefit to,
When you're gonna have unblended testing going on too, so you'll have the data
yeah.
for that way. Wondering if it's a real big difference in the water quality on each one.
Yeah,
You get a better result by.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I think we'll be able to tell you
Yeah.
at the end of the pilot.
But we're all thinking one plant, not a separate.
Yeah, one plant we'd have to site somewhere here.
Yeah,
I think that would probably be the first step is, if we're gonna go in that direction, maybe even before the pilot report is in hand, we might, look at maybe appropriating a preliminary site. So we can get the survey done, the geotech done, get the site stuff done. That way when it comes time to the process, we already know we're putting the building in.
yeah, because if you're shooting for October,
Access.
you need that stuff done up.
Yeah, get, signed up on board and committed to getting designs
And we got,
done.
the best place to put that is over in the Kelleher's old pit over there at Norman Avenue. No, in the
Yeah,
back
if
of
it's
Norman
gonna
Avenue.
produce a waste stream, yeah, then that's the best, because it'll go out into the swamp and then we can pull it back in again.
So if I'm looking at the building that's behind it,
Yeah.
okay.
Behind it,
back there.
there was a big gravel pit out there at one time. He took most of the gravel out of there, but years ago, now there's trees in there, but there never used to be. It was
Okay.
open pit. There's lots of room out there. We own lots of acres out there.
Yeah, so it could be a good spot then.
And there is still some hills of gravel there that could be, take the trees off them, they could be leveled down to bring the grade up a little bit where the buildings are gonna be. We wouldn't have to bring stuff in, just steal it from,
Regrade was
Yeah,
on.
regrade
out
it.
there.
The hill used to go up like this, so they took the whole hill out, but they left this part of the, there's piles of gravel around the outside edges of it.
Okay.
And I think we could take some of that and regrade it. It'd be a lot cheaper than
Yeah,
trucking it in.
No, be worth. Phil's not cheap anymore.
No. It'd be nice if all the gravel was still there, but it's all gone.
When is annual town meeting?
When's the what?
Annual town
He
meeting?
does it early,
June
so,
usually, isn't it?
yeah, but he runs it in May, like sometimes early
The
May.
last 2 years, right?
Yeah, he likes to get it done early, which doesn't work because he doesn't have his numbers right until like the last minute.
We used to have a town meeting, annual town meeting right after the election. The next week after the election, I think it was years ago, we went town meeting and then we went right to the election. So they were real close together. Then they weren't getting the state numbers on the cherry sheet. So they held the town meeting off till they knew what they were gonna get on the cherry sheet. but they seem like they found out what they getting on the cherry sheet earlier, but they never moved the town meeting back to an earlier date. It used to work out better, I think, when it was earlier.
Yeah, we'll just have to see if they call another special for some
Yeah.
time too.
All right, well, thanks
All right,
again.
well,
Yeah,
thank you for
see
coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And our next meeting will be when?
Tuesday, January 3rd.
Yep.
January 3rd. Anything else anybody wants to discuss?
So
Or?
that's all. So we should be. Oh, the stuff with the lead?
So back in 2019, this before our current superintendent there, the DEP was mailing the schools and telling them that they were changing things. They weren't telling us, but, so it was by surprise that I learned that they haven't even voted. I don't think DEP itself has actually made it at what it is right now, 1 part per billion, but Mass DEP decided to go with the 1 part per billion as the action level
For what?
for lead and copper, so lead. So the schools tested out, I think it was at 3. So the Rose McDonald had a bubbler tested 3, they shut them all off. And then the Howard School kitchen sink tested at 3, but these are 6-hour tests, stagnation tests, so they were already doing kind of a flushing program, so now one of the action levels is you're allowed to flush. So I didn't have any people today, so tomorrow I'm gonna hand out bottles because people ask, well, how do you know it works? Well, because SDP wouldn't, so we're just gonna test it with a flushed result,
Okay.
just to bring back zeros. Hopefully it brings back zeros because people who pitchfork me if they didn't, but it should bring back zeros because basically you flushed it.
Well, let me tell you something about the design of the schools, okay? They create their own problem over there. When the state makes them design a school, that they've got a
It should
3-inch
be
water
home run.
main going up in the ceiling, okay? Made of copper, and the old high school used to have the lead solder in it. And it was up in the ceiling where it was the hottest, okay? And the only thing connected to it, the kitchen that uses most of the water, was the other direction. So it went all down through the school, and the only thing that was using the water was the classrooms that had faucets in them, like the labs and stuff, and they turned them on very little. And the bubblers in the hallway. So the engineers who engineered the school engineered that water line so that they could flush every toilet in the school at the same time and not drop the pressure below a certain amount. So they had to put a 3-inch line in, but in reality, the only way that you can go to the bathroom in a school is get permission to go to the men's and ladies' rooms. There's only a couple kids in there at a time, so you're not flushing every toilet all at the same time. So the water sits up there, I think, for weeks, and it just moves along. And the kid drinks the water out of the bubbler, and he uses a quart maybe, and that slug of water. They think that they're testing the water and it's 6 hours old. That water is sitting up there and it's been there for weeks.
The problem is with this test, the DEP, I asked them that I wanted to get going, I asked them questions, and I started in June when the school was in session. By the time they answered me back, it was August. Or July. So they basically screwed me, because now the school's shut down, you're using even less water.
I recommended to the school a long time ago, find the end of the line in each hallway and have a plumber come in and extend that line down, put a ball valve on it, and put the line to the outdoors. And then before school starts, after vacations and stuff like that, open that ball valve and flush new water into the school so that all during Christmas vacation, that water never moves. It sits up there, and that copper pipe, it's gotta be loaded with copper. I mean, it's sitting there in a copper pipe. It doesn't have the copper and the lead when it's in the street, because we don't have any out
No,
there.
it's not us, it's the buildings themselves. Any
Right.
house that was
It's
built
the- it's
before
the building,
86.
but they have no way to
basically got
flush it
lead
out.
solder.
So it has to do with their design, and then they didn't compensate by having a place to blow it out. And when I suggested that they simply just put a blow off in, and like we have blow offs on the end of our dead ends, they need blow offs on the end of their dead ends at each end of a wing of the school, and they didn't wanna do it. So, you know, now it's our problem.
They just have to put in
They-
point of
they
use
got the-
devices.
They got, you know, the lead.
Like put in like carbon filters.
Yeah,
What's our lead count in the system?
we don't test our system because there's no lead out there.
Right, that's what I mean. So it's coming from the schools and it's coming from the plumbing. It's not
Right.
us.
It's just, they'll have to put in point of use filters everywhere. It becomes a maintenance thing for them. That'll take it, and they'll have to maintain it and do it, because like DEP wants you to keep logs and stuff. It's not, yeah, and you've gotta do it. Because if you get caught not doing it,
They need to downsize those. When they design a school, they need to.
Yeah, that's plumbing code though. It's
I
based
know.
on-
Yeah.
It's
Well,
based on, they gotta design it based on the fixture count or it doesn't
Yeah.
meet the code. So,
They gotta look at what's really being used, not what in theory could happen.
but that's not what they're told to do by the code.
I know.
So,
So
it goes back to the state and the people who write the code.
Right. So you got 6 people sitting on a board that make a decision for the whole state, and it's not right. Somebody needs to tell them that, you know, you're messing up a lot of kids by not doing it right. You're making a bad decision. No.
And apparently the kids use those for bottled, like the bottled water stations, because that's what they're talking about.
yeah, and then they'll have to
They-
put in some
they use
bottled
them,
ones.
yeah.
Right, with point of use filters on them and it works. And the bottle filling station is actually better than a bubbler because you don't get any splashback out of somebody's mouth. You're just dropping down into a bottle.
How come we never worried about that when we were kids?
Yeah,
You
we
drank
all
out of
survived.
bubblers, drank out of the garden hose, nobody ever cared.
Maybe that's what's wrong
Think
with
if
us.
they didn't give us,
That's why everybody gets sick.
think about if they didn't give us all that lead through the bubblers, we all would have been a lot smarter.
Yep,
It's scary.
I tried reaching out to Mark the next day after you emailed us.
yep,
And I tried, so I sent him an email and I called him a couple times, but I wasn't able to reach him.
yeah,
And
he
I
was,
think you did a fine job.
yeah, I worked with them, you know, I drafted a couple of memos, I sent them over to him to let him see.
I saw that. Yeah,
And then
you
I
did a fine
published
job.
basically, well, Deborah can't get, for some reason, she's locked out of the system, so she can't get us up there, but we're gonna put something up there. I think Kerry's back tomorrow, so I think she can get into the system.
No, it was handled well, so.
Well, I had can say a case of urgency, so I made sure I stayed on it, so
Yeah.
that pretty much ate up my 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do, appreciate
Because
it.
I understand people's concerns, and it is important, it's not,
Yeah. And I haven't heard anyone saying that it isn't a school issue, you know?
Right.
Like you were saying, I haven't heard anything.
no, the PFAS though, they must have saw Deborah's update today, because it,
We're getting calls.
yeah,
Well, but again, at least it stayed under,
right.
than, you know, from where it's supposed to be, and we're going forward with the stuff anyway.
Right, it's not, we haven't been sitting here, we're moving on it, and like you sitting here
Yeah,
today.
we might be moving quicker if the money
Right.
works out, so.
Well, we'll see how fast we're moving when we get the bill.
Yeah.
Well,
Like I said, they'll understand, but they're not gonna like it, and there was nothing they could do, they were emerging contaminants, like PFAS came out of nowhere.
Yep.
And manganese is right behind it, so if you don't get going on manganese, then you're gonna be behind the 8 ball again, and they'll be mad about that, so.
We just do it. just do the manganese, do the iron removal plant. There'll be something else after that too.
The regulations are never gonna get looser, they're always gonna get tighter, but if, you know, like, if he's right, and he said, we're the only treatment ones that they even got on the SRF on that special program, we gotta take advantage of it.
Like, you guys
Yeah.
jumped on it right away. It wasn't, you didn't sit around and think about it. The minute we had the results, we were on it, so we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, well, thank God we started the year early. We gotta jump on everybody, and our testing was free. Even
Of
though,
course, it's not free anymore.
No, some of the towns didn't test. They still haven't tested. I don't know how they get away with that, but
no, but people all thought that West Bridgewater was the only one that had it. They didn't
No.
understand that we tested early and we found out about it. Nobody else had tested yet.
no, everybody else around us, they all failed too.
Right, but a lot of them didn't test
Right.
for a year later, so they all thought, well, how come you guys are all contaminated and the other towns aren't? No, they just haven't tested yet.
Right.
And the only reason why we tested early is it was free.
Right.
We saved them money by doing it
You save
early.
money, it's not like you were gonna get out of doing it, you were gonna have to do it all eventually anyway, so you take advantage of it.
So we told them the bad news earlier than anybody else, and they were mad at us.
Yeah.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So I just wanted to say before we adjourn,
Okay.
we kinda gave Wayne a lot to do these next 2 weeks with the holidays coming up. I would say that, between looking into the job posting and the solo before the next meeting and the Badger meters and everything else, I'd say that the ARPA. would
I'm
be
gonna
my-
push the Badger meters to the background because I've been dealing with it all along anyways. I'll look into the opera as fast as I can. The solar,
Yeah, I'd say that's
I'll
be the
pick up
priority.
when I can get into, or Terry get a better understanding, because it just gets convoluted the way the money comes. And I warned her, and then when she came with the number, I'm like, no, I've already spent that this year. No, you haven't, this way. No, I had to show her.
Because of the way the subsidy works.
Yeah, it's not easy to find it.
With that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.